Hey, DJ.
What's going on, Wes?
Hey, man, did you know that water leaks account for approximately 14% of all property damage claims? The average cost of water damage claim is around $10,000, and one in every 50 insured homes will file a water damage claim each year.
I did not know that, and I do not look forward to ever having to do that.
Oh, it's a bad time. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Live, Love, Wiley podcast, hosted by Wes Dorsey and DJ Shirley. Connecting people in the city we live and love. All right. We got a great episode today. But first, before we get started, I want to thank the Live, Love, Wiley band for always showing up and showing out.
You don't want that email.
No.
For not thanking them.
No, I get it all the time, but this time I remembered. So we got a great episode today. Today we have longtime Wiley resident, and business owner Marissa Page in the studio with us. Marissa and her husband Jake own and operate Page Restoration, a premier restoration, remediation, and reconstruction company based here in Wiley. So please welcome Marissa to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
That's awesome. We're glad to have you. You've been on my short list to have on the podcast for quite some time now. I'm stumbling over my words today. It's good. So let's just get started. You know, the way we do the podcast, you did tell me that you've seen a few episodes. That's great. We like to get to know our guests, kind of go back in time a little bit. So let's go back in time. I understand that you grew up here in Wiley.
I did. Yep.
What is, just right off the bat, what is one of your favorite memories of growing up in our great town?
So I grew up on this side of Wiley, just down Westgate. And so as a kid, I always would ride my bike or walk to school with all of my friends. And that was a big thing. And so now having kids in this generation, it's different. My kids don't do that. And then just attending all of the football games. I was always at the football games.
Football is big in Texas, right?
Yes.
So you mentioned riding your bike all over the place when you were a kid. I mean, I guess you can't do that now with the traffic. There's cars everywhere.
No, and I think maybe I was just ignorant to it then. Maybe there was traffic then, but no, you cannot do that now.
Yeah. I remember I've been in Wiley 23, 24 years now. 25 years. 25 years now. And the traffic is substantially increased over that time period. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I could see that back in the day you could get out and ride your bike around on the roads and around Westgate and not incur too much traffic.
True.
So which schools did you go to?
I went to McMillan Junior High, and then I went to Wiley East High School, and I graduated in 2013 from Wiley East.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Wiley East, 2013, that was around when Wiley East first opened up, right?
Mm-hmm. So I was the second class there. So when I got there as a freshman, there were sophomores.
Okay.
So it wasn't as intimidating. I was always scared. You know, when you're going into high school, you got the seniors and you're the freshmen, the fish. And so I was always really nervous about that. But then when I found out that Wiley East was just going to be freshman, sophomore, and I was going to grow with the school, I was totally fine with it.
Yeah, you didn't have the seniors doing weird, pranks on you and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, thinking back, who were some of your favorite teachers?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to put me on the spot with this one. It's funny because he's actually still at Wiley East, but Coach Andrews was always really cool. I believe when I was there, I think he taught English. I don't know what he teaches now, and he was my teacher for a short time. But he's still a coach there, and he's my brother-in-law's coach for baseball. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so I communicate with him often when they do like their rag ball tournaments that they just had last week, and we sponsor that. So it's kind of weird. It's like a full circle. You know, I was a student, and now I'm a business owner, and I operate here, and I still converse with him somehow, some way. So
shout out to Coach. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. So what were your? You said he taught English. Was English one of your favorite subjects, or?
It was all right. It felt too easy. And it was one of those things where, like, if I failed it, why would I fail it? Because it's reading and writing and it's super easy. But math was my favorite subject.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Usually you have math people or you have English people, right? So I was always a math person. That's why I'm not very good at the English language, and I stumble over words and things like that. But that's what makes the podcast interesting is listening to me mess up my words.
Yeah.
So growing up, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, a business owner? What did you aspire to be growing up?
No. So actually, growing up, I wanted to be a nurse. So I've obviously had like small jobs. I worked at the drive-through donut shop here in Wiley. It was my very first job. I did, like waitressing at Taste of Home before it was Frankie's here in Wiley. And so I always worked in the food industry while I was in high school. And then right when I was graduating, I was a vet tech. And I was a vet tech for about 3.5 years. And so I was like, animals are cool, but they're kind of terrible to work with, And so I always wanted to be a nurse. I ended up having my first son when I was fairly young at 20, and that kind of just derailed my plans. I didn't want to be gone for 12 hours a day or work nights. So I just stuck to it. And so I, at that point, just wanted to manage something. I wanted to be in an office environment. It became very taxing working from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. with a child. So I got into insurance and I was doing that for a while. And then I was managing an audio video company whenever I met my husband. And he worked for a restoration company. And over the next couple of years of our relationship in the beginning, he was like, I want to do my own thing, but I don't know what I want to do. And I was like, good luck, babe. Like, I believe in you. You're going to do such a great job. And
Go out there and do it.
yeah, so that was always the plan, that he was going to do his thing and I was going to do my thing. And we were both going to provide for the home, and God had different plans.
Yeah.
So when we opened our company, I had a full-time job at a plumbing company as an office manager, and they were downsizing. And so, of course, management was one of the first to go. And so they let me go, and I was distraught.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking, like, we had put all of our savings aside to float our bills while my husband's opening the company. And now I just have to be feet on the ground, and I have to run and take off with it. And it was never my plan to do any of this with him. It was always my plan just to be his cheerleader, but I would never go back and change it.
We talked to a lot of business owners, and a lot of things. Some of the most successful companies are built through that trial and tribulation at the beginning, and just getting thrown into it and created out of desperation.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. So I think you kind of may have peeked at my notes because, my next question was, when did you first meet Jake?
Yes.
Let's go back to that. Let's talk about Jake.
Yeah. So everybody has those ugly phases. So I was a little ugly duckling, and I think when I was like 11 or 12, my aunt moved to Wiley, and I spent a lot of my summers with my aunt and my cousins. And so she moved to Wiley, and the street that she moved to is where Jake's mom lives. And so growing up, we would hang out outside, play with all the neighborhood kids. Jake is 3 years older than me. So at that age, that's a big age gap. So he was always mean to me, picked on me. We would play hide and go seek in the dark outside with my cousins and all the neighborhood kids, and he would just ditch us. And I was like, you're a jerk, And so I had a crush on him then, and then, life went separate ways. He, did his own thing. I did my own thing. And then back in 2016, I saw him. I was going to my aunt's house. They still live across the street from each other. I saw him, and I stopped and I said hi, and was seeing how he was doing, and said hi to his mom. And we started dating 2 months later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's a great story.
It's pretty crazy.
So you said 2016. That was the year of the Hellamageddon or the big hailstorm, right?
Yes, that was brutal.
Yeah, was he working in restoration at that time?
He was. So he tells me stories all the time about how that literally was terrible. Like he can't fathom those hours now. I think maybe because he's a little bit older. But yes, they were sun up to sundown, maybe slept a couple of hours. They would sleep at the office. It was brutal.
Yeah, it was a lot of damage here in Wiley during that course. I know a lot of my neighbors, the hail went through my roof. I mean, it was like like we were getting bombed. It was like a
Yeah.
war zone.
Yeah, and the yards had big divots. Like you couldn't walk through yards because you would fall in nearly
Yeah.
a pothole. It was bad.
Yeah, a lot of the people that lived across the street from me, the back of their houses faced this incoming storm, just blew out all the windows, and most of those homes had to get completely stripped down to the studs and rebuilt and remodeled.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, well, my house didn't sustain much other than just some holes in the roof because we had solar screens on the windows,
Oh yeah.
and so it bounced the hail off. And I think I had two cracked windows on the front of my house.
Oh gosh.
But everybody else was. I mean, it was a wild time.
It was very weird. It was very like
It was. I think that's
somber.
a once in a lifetime type of storm. Knock on wood. Where's the wood here?
You want to know what's crazy about that is that happened on April 11th, 2016, and that happens to be my birthday.
Really?
Yeah, so I was an intern at that time, and I lived in some apartments off Country Club, and I was headed home. I lived on the 3rd floor, and I think my son was 2. Yeah, he was almost 2, and I was headed home, and I knew the storm was coming. I was like, oh, no big deal. We'll just hunker down, and then we'll go eat dinner afterwards.
Yeah.
There was no dinner afterwards, so it was pretty. Happy birthday, Marissa. You know.
Here's your birthday present.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I guess. Do you ever think about that every year on your birthday? That storm?
I do. You know, you get Facebook memories and they pop up and you're like, wow, this is terrible, you know? So yeah, I do every year.
That's awesome. So speaking of Jake, did he always, I guess you kind of prefaced this earlier in the conversation, but did he always want to be a business owner and entrepreneur? Because you mentioned he would always talk about wanting to do his own thing.
Yeah. So Jake is a go-getter. And that's what I really love about him. But so he's worked at Whataburger and Lowe's and all the cool stuff. And what a lot of people don't know about Jake, and he doesn't put it out there publicly, but he graduated from Wiley High in 2009 and then graduated from the police academy down in Houston. And you're going to catch me saying it wrong, so I don't know the name of it, but in 2012. So he became a certified peace officer. And at that time, he came back to Wiley. And his buddy was like, hey, come work with me at my dad's job. You know, it's super easy, you know? And so he started Low Man Totem Pole, and that's when he started working for the restoration company. They're located here in Wiley. And he was looking for, you know, jobs with other police departments. And every time he was offered a job, he was always making more with this restoration company.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I can't leave it. You know, I can't leave it. I'm still making good here. I'm just going to keep trying. He finally gave up on that because he just kept going and he kept building his way up. And for quite a while he was there, he obtained all his certificates and all of this knowledge. And he was like, you know, I want to own this place. And he had been having these conversations with the owner, and things weren't lining up. It just wasn't the time, and he was fine with that. And so it got to a point where he was like, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing, you know? And originally we looked into franchise.
Yeah.
And that wasn't lining up. And there was a reason that wasn't lining up. I don't know what that reason is, and we don't really need to know. And so I said, you should just do your own. You don't have anybody to pay. You don't have anybody to answer to. You have no limitations on what you can do. You should do your own thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times franchises, I mean, you got to pay that franchise fee, and that's just a cost that's incurred. I don't think that's, you know, that you got to pay monthly or yearly or whatever, quarterly.
Yeah.
It's just on top of your business. And I think doing your own thing and going your own way, especially, you know, branding local and creating something from scratch is the way to go.
Right. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah. So the company that he worked for, was it local or was it in the area? You don't have to mention any names.
Yeah. Yeah. So the office is here in Wiley, but they were grandfathered into this location. So this franchise requires you to office in your territory. Well, their territory was Flower Mound, Louisville. So Friday, 4:00, they're coming back to the shop. There's no jobs to do, and they get a water damage. Highland Village, Flower Mound, and they're like, all right, we're heading out there, you know. So the office is here in Wiley, but they service out that way.
Out that way. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's not much competition then.
Nah. We still keep in contact with them too. So
I mean, you mentioned to me earlier, you know, you guys are the best, right?
I like to think so. I like to think so. We do try.
That's awesome. So let's go back to, I mean, let's start. We kind of touched on it. Page registration. Is there anything else about how it got started that we're missing that we can tell a story about?
I think something that a lot of people presume is that you have to have some sort of loan to start a business. And I would want anybody to know that you don't have to have a loan. Jake and I were very, very frugal, and I thank God we are not anymore. We are for the most part, but that type of frugal was brutal. But we were very frugal. We saved money. He had a really nice Toyota FJ, and if anybody knows anything about cars, they don't make them anymore. And it was paid off, and so we sold it for quite a bit, and we just saved, and we didn't get any sort of loan to start our company. So. Yeah. I think it just took a lot of dedication, and I would want anybody to know that if they're trying to start a business, that it doesn't take an SBA loan or grandma and granddad's money to, you know, get you started, whatever it may be. It's just dedication. It's in your heart.
You don't have to incur all that debt.
No.
And have all that overhead.
No, thank God.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you can build and scale as you grow, right? Mm-hmm. So just, you know, Jake in a truck out there.
Yeah.
You know, doing business, right?
Yeah, that was how it was for a while. He's still in the truck. I can't get him out of it.
Yeah.
I really try.
Well, he's doing what he loves, I guess, right?
Yes.
And I guess go back to something that you said earlier. His buddy that originally got him over working in the business, you know, said, "Hey, come work with me. It's easy." I bet looking back on that is like, you know, it's not that easy, right?
No, it's kind of funny. So we still keep in contact with that friend. He's moved up north, but it's so funny because Jake was like, "This is not easy. I'm mucking out wet insulation and falling drywall, and it's freezing cold or it's scorching hot, and I'm in basements and attics, or not basements, crawl spaces and attics, and you know, like all these crazy things." He's like, "This isn't easy. Where's the easy part?" And his buddy was like, "Oh, when we clock out, that's the easy part."
That's the easy part. Yeah, that's the easy part. Whatever. For sure. That's awesome. So tell me, what is it like working with your spouse?
So
that's one of my favorite questions.
Yeah. So we actually worked together at the restoration company. So it was back in 2018, 2019. He hired me. And you're like, "Oh, cool, you get to go work with at the time he was my fiance." And I thought it was going to be fun. It was not fun. When it is work, it is work. And he was my boss then. And so he would come in there and he would give me all these things that he needs done in the next 5 minutes, it felt like. And I'm like, "Well, I'm your fiance," you know? And so then obviously, like I said, we originally hadn't planned on doing this together, but it's fun. Obviously there's the trials and tribulations and the hard times and the hard discussions we have to have, and you take it home with you, but we have learned along the way not to take it home. We have 3 children, so we want to keep that at work, but he's fun to work with. I think that, I'm able to mellow him out and he's able to mellow me out when we need it. But we have a lot of fun at work. And we share an office together. That was against my will for the longest time. And he sits in there and I'm working and I pull my knees up and I got a blanket and the lights are off and I got my TV going and I'm working, and he's like, "Hey babe, I have a question." And I'm like, "Don't turn that light on." And he turns the light on and I'm like, "Why?" So it's fun.
It is fun. I have my wife and I used to work, she used to be a real estate agent as well, and we worked together, and we had an office at the house, and our desks face each other.
Yeah.
And so every day we would be working similarly in the same room. Yeah. I loved it. She decided it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
And so she went to nursing school.
That's
and so
awesome.
she's a nurse now. Yeah, she loves what she does. She's a cardiovascular ICU nurse. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, she loves what she does. So
that's so cool.
You know, we all take different paths, and we ultimately end up where we need to be, I believe.
Absolutely.
You know, we also have another friend that's working the control board here that actually works with his wife as well. So, we can say, how's that going, DJ?
Yeah.
It's going well. It's going well.
There you go. There you go. Awesome. So let's talk about page restoration. How's it grown over the years? So let's go. When did you start? What year again?
It was July of 21 when we started.
So relatively new company, right? And when you started out, it was just Jake in a truck. Yeah, any helpers?
Yeah. So when we started, it was just him for probably 2 months. And then he has a cousin who, just wanted to come help him. And so he was our helper for a while. November of 21, we hired Noah, and Noah is our production manager. Noah is our right hand. He is somebody that we 100% can depend on. And our original goal when we started the company was just to live comfortably. We just wanted a little bit of extra money in our pocket. We wanted to be able to travel once a year with our kids. We wanted to have some fun, nothing crazy. And I knew a lot of people. I worked property management and insurance and all that. I knew a lot of people from there. He knew a lot of people from being at the other restoration company. And people just kept calling us and calling us and calling us. And I was like, okay, well, we need more people, babe. And he's like, all right, I'll work on it. It has to be busy for 6 weeks. And I'm like, we've been busy for 10 weeks. We need more people.
He had no idea how many weeks it was. He was just grinding it out.
Yeah.
Right?
So, we just take it as it comes, and like we'll sit down and pre-plan for what we want to make revenue wise, and we set these goals. But I don't ever say I want 10 trucks and 20 employees, and I don't want to put a number to it like that, because I just want it to come naturally, and I don't want to grow too fast.
Right.
And we have far surpassed our initial goal of just living comfortably and making a few $100,000. So it's been a blessing, nonetheless.
That's
for
awesome.
Sure.
So, 2021, right? Mm-hmm. So how many employees do you have now?
We have, I guess I don't count. We have 8. I think that's what it is. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I've had all of these employees. I think my newest one is like 3 months old.
Yeah.
So I've had all these employees for a while. But yeah, we have 6 guys. Yeah, I'm right. And 2 office girls.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, translate 6 guys, 6 service vehicles, or do you have more than 6 out there running?
We have now 5 vans and then Jake's truck. So all vans are on the road pretty much every day, unless they're at like a really large job and we have them group up in a van because there's no need for 2 vans going to one location.
Sure.
But we just acquired our 5th van on our daughter's birthday in October, and she thinks we bought it for her.
Awesome.
So it goes straight to her head.
What a good birthday gift.
Yeah. So
You should put her name on the back of it.
we should. I'm sure if only y'all knew who Paisley was, it would go straight to her head. It's so bad.
I'm going to be looking for Paisley's van.
She's like the kid that's like, yeah, my daddy owns Page Restoration. She's like one of those.
Oh, okay.
And she's only 5.
Okay.
So I think we're in for it.
That's cute. So people that don't know exactly what, a restoration remediation company does, what services do you guys offer?
Yeah, so we do emergency water mitigation. So like for water damages in residential and commercial. We do mold remediation, residential and commercial, fire restoration, biohazard, crime scene cleanup, pack out, storage, move back, reconstruction.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the crime scene cleanup. I bet you got some stories about that. But before we get into that, let's talk about, the water damage and stuff like that, right? So is that particularly about storm damage or is busted pipes? What is the most common theme there around?
So it depends on the season. So in the summer, you have like your AC drain lines are draining. Water heaters bust year round. They mainly bust in the winter, or they bust more in the winter, I guess I could say. Frozen pipes busting after the temperatures rise. Storms. It really just depends on the season. So like at the end of May, May 28th specifically, we had heavy, heavy, heavy rain here.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know, when your ground is flooding and it comes in, insurance doesn't cover that unless you have a separate flood policy. And so we got a lot of calls like that. And surprisingly, I had a few customers that had flood policies. That made me rethink my life choices because I don't have one.
Right.
But it really depends on the season. But water heaters are, I wouldn't even say the main culprit. I would honestly say it's busted pipes.
Really?
Yeah, and they bust randomly. Super weird.
Is it mainly in older homes or?
No. Currently, we're working a job. So I guess when the house was built, now don't get me wrong, I'm not a plumber, but there's some sort of, I don't know what they call it, some pipe in the wall. So I guess when they were
they drilled
nailing,
it.
yeah. So there were little bitty holes in this pipe, and it had been slow leaking over time, and then it just ruptured.
Right.
So this entire house flooded, and they were like, I have no idea how this happened. It's not below freezing, so it ruptured and damaged the entire house.
That's not, that just gives me nightmares.
Yeah. And that happens a lot in new builds, a lot.
And they're running the PEX in the wall.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Are you a plumber?
No, I'm not a plumber. But that stuff's, from what I understand, is not supposed to freeze and bust. It's supposed to stretch. But I guess if you put a nail through it or a screw through it, that just changes the whole dynamic of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what would you say? What do you get the most calls for?
I'll go back to the season thing. So right now it's mold. We get a lot of mold, and that happens because it's either a small leak that somebody didn't think was that big of a deal, and now all of a sudden their entire crawl space is covered in mold, or their entire kitchen or whatever. Here soon it'll be a lot of busted pipes. Yeah. Even though we are not predicted to have a very cold winter, it still will happen.
Yeah.
So
how is how is the mold detected? Do people just like see it all of a sudden, or are they having some kind of mold symptoms? Or
yeah. So most of them see it. Some of them just start smelling it, or they have mold symptoms and they go to the doctor and they have to do a mold detox, and they're like, well, where is it? And there's two entities in the state of Texas. One is called a mold assessment consultant, and they have to be separate from a mold remediation contractor, which is what we are.
Right.
Kind
of about like checks and balances.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the consultant will go out there and they perform 3 types of tests. One is a visual, one is a lift sample, and the other one is an air quality sample. Those all go off, not the visual, you can't send that anywhere, but those 2 tests go off to a lab, and the lab writes up a report, and it says if it's aspergillus or all these other different type of molds, how severe it is, and then the MAC, the mold assessment consultant, will write a protocol, and then that's where I come into play. My team will take that protocol, put together an estimate, and then we remediate based on those guidelines, and those are minimum guidelines. So if they tell me to cut 12 feet of drywall, but I see it goes beyond the 12 feet, I legally have to cut beyond that. And then I have to have a margin of 18 to 24 inches beyond that. So they just give us that baseline and we take it from there. And so that's how that works.
So there's a lot of specifications involved with the type of work you guys do, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of legality to it and a lot of liability.
So that leads me to the next question.
Okay.
Tell me about, and I read this on your website, the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification, which is the IICRC.
Yeah. So the IICRC is an institute for, like they said, cleaning and restoration. And so there's different certifications. And the very first certification that people in this industry get is the Water Restoration Technician, the WRT cert. So usually when our technicians get that, they're super excited, but they don't realize that there's so many more. I should have probably gotten that number for you, but there's different classes, but you have to start with WRT. And so when Jake was at the other restoration company, he started with that, got the next level, which I think was applied structural drying. And And then he got applied microbial remediation technician and all these other things. Well, then you hit a cap. When you hit that cap, you take a final test, and it's called triple master certified. And so Jake has been triple master certified since 2018 or 2019. And we renew it every year, and he does the continuing education classes. And then all of my technicians have, at minimum, their water certification. A few of them have a little bit more, but we're working to get them all trained up.
All that sounds pretty sciencey.
It is. It's kind of nerdy. You know, when I talk about it, I feel like this is so boring to people, but it's so important because anybody can do water restoration. Anybody can grab something to suck water up, a shop vac.
Shop vac, go to Home Depot, rent the carpet dryer or whatever.
Yeah. You can get the air movers and the dehumidifiers, but there's a science to it, and a lot of people don't know that science is there is a job that the air mover does, and there is a job that the dehumidifier does, and if they're not both there and there's not enough of them, it's not drying the structure, and you're gonna have mold.
Right.
So that's why I stress to people, like, hire somebody that knows what they're doing, and they invest in their education. Because you can be left with mold, and you don't want that.
Yeah, because you don't know it's growing, and all of a sudden you're sick or because mold's bad news.
Yes, it's not good.
So I think we already talked about. My next question was, what was the most common type of disaster you get calls for? Depends on the season, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what's when you get a call? What's your initial process when you go and arrive at somebody's home that has been, damaged, or you have these type of problems?
Yeah. So when they call into our office, the girls will take down their information, and everything is an emergency to everybody. So even if your water heater busted last Saturday and you're calling me Wednesday, you've let it go on for some time, but we are going to treat it as an emergency. Something may have been happening for you that we couldn't come out. And then as soon as our technician is on site, he has you explain, what happened, where did it happen, did you have it fixed? And then he will scope. So let's say you say only this area is wet. He's going to go outside of those margins, and he's going to make sure that nothing is actually wet out here. And then he puts together an estimate, essentially. So he puts together all of his line items on what needs to take place to get your home back to pre-loss condition. And then it goes off to my office. My girls put it in a formal document with photos, moisture readings, all the scientifical yada yada stuff that not many people look at.
All the nerdy stuff.
Yeah. And so then it gets sent to you, and you decide, am I going to file an insurance claim? Am I going to go ahead and have them do this? We do try to have people stabilize at minimum to prevent secondary damages like that mold growth, because what you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
So we really try to educate while we're on site that first time. Even if we don't get the job, we want somebody to know what they're looking at, what the potential hazards are, and the possibility of where it could go, so.
Right. You talk about moisture readings. I guess that you guys have a special tool to read moisture throughout the house, or some kind of, I don't know. And that's my next question actually is, what type of equipment is deployed for different types of disasters? You have different equipment for a water leak versus mold remediation versus crime scene versus fire versus all the different things. So can we go through that and see what that equipment looks like?
Yeah, so your typical water damage has air movers, dehumidifiers, and air scrubbers. Air scrubbers are placed on every single job for the safety of the occupants and our employees. And air scrubbers they have a HEPA filter in them, so they just filtrate out all those nasty particles. I don't know what's in your home, and you don't know typically what could be hidden under the floor, behind the baseboard. You don't know.
So it's like a heavy duty air purifier.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so we always place those on site. And then the mold jobs typically have the same air scrubbers and dehumidifiers to draw all that humidity out of there. Once we've removed all of the mold and we've done heavy cleaning, sanding, all the stuff, then we will place air movers to dry down the structure, because it has to be dry to pass clearance testing. And then fire jobs, there's ozone machines that neutralizes the oxygen in the air, so it essentially removes any odor. Hydroxyl machines. It's a little less intense of an ozone, but it does the same thing. There's HEPA vacuums that we use. It's almost like a air scrubber. It has a HEPA filter. It just vacuums up all the particles that you can, visibly see. And then we have like your typical moisture readers, thermal imaging cameras, hammer probes that reads wood. There's so much to it.
High-tech stuff.
Yeah.
So, running 5-6 service vehicles, how much of this equipment do you have to have and keep in stock to be able to effectively service everybody that would call you?
Yeah, so I think we're really strategic with this because we buy equipment about twice a year in bulk. So most of the time, all of our vans are loaded unless the guys are going to a job to remove equipment. Then they need the space. So our vans usually have anywhere from 20 to 40 fans and 2 to 5 dehumidifiers and 2 air scrubbers. It all just depends on what their day looks like, who's on call, what kind of weather we're coming into. And then our office usually is bare bones because it's either out on jobs, it's in vans, it's everywhere. Now, when we get slammed with freezing weather and we have 0 equipment on vans and in our office, we're very strategic about it. So, all right, Mrs. Jones has been drying for 3 days. We're going to go out today and check it. Mrs. Jones is done drying for the most part. We're going to leave 2 air movers because that's all that it needs. And then that remainder is going to go over to so-and-so's house to go ahead and get that drying process started. So we are able to cycle them through.
So yeah, I think you touched on this earlier. There's like calculations, like you have X square footage that's still wet, and so you do the math, and you need 2 air handlers and the air scrubber or dehumidifier.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember all this.
You're
stuff.
hired.
Hey, I got a job. All right. Yeah. So you do that math, and then you can calculate. Okay, we only need X here. We can rotate those. I think I saw a picture on social media of your warehouse, and it was full of air blowers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, I would say we have a good portion of our equipment out. And you might catch me lying on this, but I think in total, air movers, dehumidifiers, air scrubbers, I think we have over 700 or 800 pieces of equipment. I don't ever see them.
They're always out.
They're always being shuffled.
I mean, that's a good problem to have.
It is. It is until your insurance tells you that you need to inventory everything with serial numbers. And I'm like, and you have a month to do it, and you're leaving for a cruise. So I had to put my employees to do that. And
Wow.
It was brutal. It was brutal.
You had to put serial numbers on everything, right?
Yeah.
Create a master spreadsheet. And
Sure
all
did.
the good stuff, right?
Sure did.
Wow.
And I was like, babe, what is this? What does that mean? He's like, that's a dry max. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm like, all right, you got it.
He spit out the specs and all this stuff, right?
Yeah, he's a nerd.
That's good. Hey. So, community involvement. I know you guys are members of the Wiley Chamber of Commerce. And I guess you mentioned supporting local sports, right? So kind of let's talk about that a minute.
Yeah. So what I failed to mention to you is that we do donate to the local food pantries, Amazing Grace, Five Loaves, all that. Sometimes,
very good cause. That's a very good cause.
Yes. Yeah. I have actually gone and physically volunteered there, and I really enjoy it. And I'll be taking my team very soon to do it because I think it's humbling, and I think some of them need to be humbled. But we do donate to them. We'll occasionally do a food drive. And then I'm a sucker for Wiley East, even though my husband's Wiley High. His little brother is a senior at Wiley East and plays baseball. And so I do support the baseball team. They'll have like these... Cooper is his little brother. He'll send us this text and he's like, hey, I'm trying to raise money and I'm trying to be in first place between all of his teammates. And I'm like, well, we're not losers. And I'm like, I'm donating. And then I'll text him and I'm like, I donated. What is it for? And he's like, oh, it's for baseball. We're going to get blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we donate to that school. And once he graduates, I'll probably still donate. I'm a sucker for them.
There you go. I mean, We got our Wiley East football helmet there. I don't know.
Yeah.
We had our Crosstown Showdown episode when we had both football coaches in.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a really great episode. Wiley East coach brought us the helmet. We haven't got our Wiley High helmet yet, so putting him on blast.
Womp womp. No, I'm
Womp,
kidding.
womp, womp.
Totally kidding.
So that's great. So where can people find you online?
Yeah, so we can be found on Facebook, Page Restoration. Same with Instagram. Our website is pagerestoration.com. We do have a TikTok that I try to post to every so often. I am not as great as Ashley Bledsoe. Shout out to Ashley. She's amazing. But yeah, we are on Facebook big time. So.
Awesome. So we'll put all the links down below. DJ will. Make sure everybody the links to your socials and your website so people can contact you. Again, before we wrap up, did I miss anything? Is there anything else we need to tell the audience about page restoration? Registration.
No, I don't think so. I think that we're just family-owned and operated business, and we really pride ourselves in that. I think once people get to know us, they really see the family-owned side of it, because I have my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my other brother-in-law, and we take our jobs very seriously. And so we love what we do, and we know the liability behind things. So that's also why we take it very seriously. And I do believe we are the best in the industry.
Yeah, and you know, there's something about family-owned and operated businesses that the business becomes part of the family. Mm-hmm. The clients, the customers become part of your family through time. And I think there's nothing better than a family-owned, operated business.
Yeah, clients do. They add me on Facebook, and I'm like, yeah, I'll accept. That's fine. And my husband's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I mean, I'm Page Restoration.
I'm the same way. I accept all the friend invites, and my wife's like the same way. What are you doing?
Yeah.
She has hers locked down, and I'm just like, accept.
Yeah, nothing's a secret.
Yeah, it's all fun. All right, great. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
I think we've learned a lot about you and your company, and anyway, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Live, Love, Wiley podcast. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe there. If you're on Facebook, make sure you follow along. We appreciate you. You can always visit us at livelovewiley.com.